Amidst centuries of history and faith, a hidden secret emerges from the shadows, an apocryphal gospel that promises to reveal a Jesus never seen before. Imagine a newly discovered manuscript that challenges everything you know. In it, Jesus is not only the Savior, but an enigmatic figure with supernatural abilities that would leave even the most skeptical people awestruck. Descriptions of his appearance and temperament are so different from traditional narratives that the Church felt threatened. This document, hidden for centuries, brings revelations that could shake the foundations of Christianity. What else can this gospel hide? Why were religious authorities so quick to silence his voice? Prepare yourself for a journey through forbidden stories and twisted truths, where every word carries the weight of an ancient mystery. As we delve deeper into this narrative, you'll realize that what's at stake is more than just one man's image. It's about understanding the essence of faith and the struggle for knowledge throughout the ages. What might this new perspective on Jesus mean for your belief? Be aware that the truth may be stranger than fiction. In the Apocryphal Gospel, the description of Jesus deviates a little from the traditional image that many people know. Jesus' physical appearance is portrayed in a more human and less idealized way. For example, he can be described as an ordinary man, with characteristics that would go unnoticed in a crowd. This contrasts with canonical depictions, where he is often shown as an almost celestial being, with an aura of divinity that makes him stand out. Furthermore, Jesus' temperament in the Apocrypha reveals a side closer to everyday life. Instead of always being calm and collected, he may show more visible emotions, such as anger or frustration. This more human representation may surprise, as it challenges the image of an always peaceful and loving Jesus that many have in mind. This more realistic approach allows people to identify with him more. Jesus' behavior in the Apocryphal Gospel is also intriguing. He can be seen engaging in heated debates or questioning the religious traditions of the time. This suggests that he was aware of the injustices and hypocrisies present in his context. Contrary to the image of a peaceful and submissive leader, this apocryphal Jesus is provocative and questioning, which can inspire deeper reflections on his message. These characteristics, although different, do not diminish their importance. On the contrary, they can enrich the understanding of who Jesus was, showing that he was a man who intensely lived the issues of his time. This perspective can lead to a re-evaluation of traditional narratives and the expectations we have about him. Thus, the Apocryphal Gospel offers us a new lens through which we can look at Jesus. By focusing on his humanity, he invites us to see not only the divine, but also the vulnerable and realistic aspect of his life and teachings. In the Apocryphal Gospel, Jesus is presented with supernatural abilities that do not appear in the traditional Gospels. In addition to the classic miracles, such as healing the sick and multiplying bread, there are reports of extraordinary feats that expand his image. For example, he may be described as someone who controls time or who communicates with celestial beings. These supernatural manifestations challenge common narratives and show a more powerful and enigmatic Jesus. The miracles described in this apocryphal text are varied and often more dramatic. In some passages, he's able to resurrect the dead in a more spectacular way, or even manipulate nature in ways that go beyond what is known in canonical accounts. This not only impresses those who witness it, but also reinforces his message that he is a divine being with authority over the world. This amplification of Jesus' supernatural abilities may also reflect the beliefs and expectations of the community that produced the gospel. In an environment where mysticism and spirituality were on the rise, Jesus became a figure who met these aspirations, showing himself as a mediator between the human and the divine. This reveals how people's needs and desires influence how they view their religious figures. On the other hand, these extraordinary abilities also raise questions about the nature of their mission. If Jesus is presented with such great powers, does this change the way we understand his message of love and compassion? Instead of a leader who comes to serve, he becomes an almost mythological figure, which can impact the way the faithful relate to him. In this way, The Apocryphal Gospel not only presents a Jesus with supernatural abilities, but also provokes reflections on the meaning of these abilities in relation to his mission and legacy. Reading this text can lead us to question what we really know about Jesus and how different representations shape our faith. The historical and cultural context in which the Apocryphal Gospel was written is fundamental to understanding its messages and representations. During the period in which this text appeared, the religious environment was marked by tensions between different groups such as the Jews and the Romans. Furthermore, there was an internal struggle between religious authorities who sought to maintain control over the interpretation of Scripture and the new ideas that were emerging. Religious authorities at the time viewed apocryphal texts as threats to orthodoxy. They feared that new interpretations of the figure of Jesus could destabilize traditional faith and the religious hierarchy. Thus, the production and dissemination of non-canonical gospels were often repressed. This dynamic reveals a scenario of struggle for spiritual power and the definition of what was acceptable in religion. Furthermore, the influence of Hellenistic culture cannot be ignored. Contact with Greek philosophies and other religions of the time led to the exchange of ideas, and this is reflected in the narratives about Jesus. The Apocryphal Gospel may have been an attempt to dialogue with these cultural currents, presenting Jesus in a way that resonates with contemporary ideas. This shows the adaptability of the Christian message in new contexts. This intersection between faith and politics is crucial to understanding the impact of the Apocryphal Gospel. Religious authorities not only opposed him for doctrinal reasons, but also because they feared losing social and political control. This tension between innovation and tradition is a determining factor in the history of Christianity and shaped the paths the faith would take in the following centuries. Therefore, when analyzing the Apocryphal Gospel, it is essential to consider the historical and cultural context. Understanding the forces at play at that time helps us uncover the reasons why certain texts were marginalized and how this influenced the formation of Christianity as we know it today. This contextual analysis enriches our understanding of Jesus and the importance of his messages in an ever-changing world. The suppression of certain religious texts, such as the Apocryphal Gospel, can be understood as a strategy by religious authorities to maintain control over doctrine and believers. During the first centuries of Christianity, many ideas and interpretations about Jesus and his teachings were in dispute. Authorities sought to standardize the message to avoid confusion that could lead to division among followers. Thus, texts considered heretical were often rejected or even destroyed. In addition to dogmatic control, there was a concern with maintaining orthodoxy. What was considered right or wrong in Christian theology was under constant debate, and any manuscript that deviated from this understanding could be seen as a threat. Religious leaders feared that acceptance of different narratives about Jesus would weaken the authority of the Church and provoke schism. Uniformity was a crucial objective in ensuring the cohesion of the Christian community. Another factor to be considered is the political context of the time. The relationship between religious authorities and Roman power was delicate. The early Church was trying to establish its identity, and any text that could be interpreted as critical of the status quo or that presented an alternative view of Christianity could be considered dangerous. Therefore, the suppression of certain Gospels was not only a matter of faith, but also of institutional survival. Furthermore, issues of power within the Christian community itself must not be ignored. Rival groups vied for influence and followers, and established church leaders had an interest in eliminating dissenting voices that could attract believers to other interpretations. The Apocryphal Gospel, in offering a distinct view of Jesus, could have been seen as a direct rival to the official narrative. The suppression of the Apocryphal Gospels, including the one in question, reveals an important aspect of the history of religion: the struggle for control over truth and narrative. What is known today as Orthodox Christianity is, in part, the result of a long battle to define which texts would be considered sacred and which would be relegated to oblivion. This power dynamic continues to influence the study of the history of religion to the present day. When comparing the apocryphal gospel in question with other known apocryphal texts, both similarities and striking differences emerge in the narratives presented. For example, many apocryphal gospels, such as the Gospel of Thomas or the Gospel of Mary, also offer an alternative view of Jesus and his teachings, often emphasizing esoteric or mystical aspects. This common characteristic suggests that there was a diversity of beliefs and practices among the first Christians. However, the differences are equally significant. While some apocryphal texts may present Jesus as a teacher of wisdom, the gospel in question may highlight more supernatural aspects of his personality and actions. This raises questions about how different groups interpreted the figure of Jesus and which aspects of his life and teachings they considered most relevant. These variations help to illustrate the plurality of voices that existed in early Christianity. Furthermore, the language and literary style of the apocryphal gospels can vary greatly. Some texts are more poetic and symbolic, while others are more direct and narrative. This diversity in the way of telling the story of Jesus reflects the different communities that produced these documents and their respective needs and social contexts. When comparing these works, it becomes clear that Jesus' message was not seen in a single way, but rather was shaped by distinct cultural and theological influences. Another important point to consider is how the theology of these apocryphal texts relates to Christian orthodoxy. While some Gospels may share fundamental beliefs, such as the importance of faith in Jesus, others address theological issues that diverge from what has become official Christianity. This comparison reveals the tensions between different schools of thought within early Christianity. The comparative analysis of the apocryphal Gospels not only enriches our understanding of the figure of Jesus, but also highlights the complexity of the formation of the Christian tradition. Each text offers a glimpse into the beliefs and values of its home communities, showing that the history of Christianity is full of nuances and debates that have shaped its development over the centuries. The discovery of an apocryphal gospel like the one we are analyzing could have a significant impact on modern theology. By bringing new perspectives on the life and teachings of Jesus, this text challenges traditional views that have been shaped over the centuries. For many theologians, this means re-evaluating existing interpretations and considering how new information can enrich understanding of Jesus and his message. It is an invitation to a more open dialogue about spirituality and the history of the Christian faith. Furthermore, the inclusion of narratives and characteristics of Jesus that do not appear in the canonical Gospels can generate profound debates about the nature of Christ. For example, if the apocryphal gospel attributes to Jesus supernatural abilities that are not recognized in traditional texts, this may lead scholars to question how these differences affect the perception of his divinity. This discussion is essential for theology, as it touches on the essence of what it means to be a Christian and how the figure of Jesus is seen. Another important point is the relationship between faith and history. The discovery of this new manuscript may encourage believers to explore the intersection between their beliefs and the historical context in which those beliefs were formed. This can result in a more informed faith that not only accepts traditional dogmas, but also seeks to understand the origins and meanings behind them. Thus, modern theology can benefit from integrating a more critical and contextualized approach. Still, the influence of the apocryphal gospel can be seen in the way faith communities relate to contemporary issues. The search for a spirituality that includes diverse voices and experiences can be reinforced by new interpretations of the central figures of the faith. This can generate a movement towards a more inclusive theology, which values diversity and interreligious dialogue, instead of being tied to a single, exclusionary vision. This impact on modern theology can also be reflected in everyday religious practices. With new narratives and teachings being brought to light, communities may feel motivated to revisit their liturgies, sermons, and rituals. This can result in a renewal of spirituality, where the experience of faith becomes richer and more multifaceted, reflecting the complexity of the human journey in search of understanding and meaning. And so we reach the end of our journey through the Apocryphal Gospel that reveals a Jesus that few know about, a version that challenges everything the Church has taught us and invites us to question history as we know it. Imagine a Jesus with supernatural abilities, a vibrant temperament, and a presence that transcends the pages of the canonical Gospels. Why was this information suppressed? What else could be hiding in the shadows of history? These questions lead us to reflect on the relationship between faith and knowledge. How willing are we to explore the hidden truths that have shaped spirituality over the centuries? What if this Jesus was not just a distant figure, but a key to understanding even greater mysteries? We invite you to continue this search for the unknown. What other secrets might be hidden in forbidden texts? And how can these reports change our perception of spirituality? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more surprising reveals. The mystery of faith is just beginning, and together we can unravel it.